Bring them in on the rail, let it jog. Please, on the rail, let it jog.
Alrighty, everyone. We are back with another episode of On the Rail podcast. Today, very excited to talk to Farley McLendon kind of about all things hunter under saddle horses, the direction of where that side of the industry is going. Farley runs a really cool Facebook group that has great discussions in it about current issues and how we can better the hunter under saddle and whatnot. So that was kind of the idea behind getting her on to talk about that. So with all that being said, Farley, you want to take just a minute or two to introduce yourself for people that may not be familiar with you, just who you are, kind of what you do and how you got started in the hunter under saddle for sure.
Okay, I'm Farley McLendon. I train start colts, train young futurity, hunter under saddle horses. I used to train a little pleasure horses back in the day, but I kind of just veered off and stuck with a hunt seat, which is my favorite.
What made you stick with the hunt seat? What it is about the hunt seat specifically that you really like to dive in and focus on?
Yes, it's technical. I don't think it's sometimes quite as finite and maybe as technical as showing a pleasure horse. I know it's hard. I know there's some upper end ladies that do very well on the pleasure. For myself, it was harder for me to be in the, say, top 15, top 20 of those. The hunting horses, in my opinion, look better going a little faster than, honestly, some of the pleasure horses do. I know I'll probably take a flag for that, but some of those horses need to go forward. And they would look a lot better. Public perception would be a lot better. And I feel like with our hunting horses, we can do that.
Yes, I would have to say that it does seem like the pleasure numbers continue to dwindle a little bit. And I don't feel like I see that quite as much on the hunter under saddle side. If nothing else, it does seem like the futurity classes tend to be getting larger on our side. I say our side because I show primarily hunter under saddle right now myself too. So I think you're not alone in some of those thoughts. You've had some great hunt seaters in your career for sure. So which one of those may stand out to you the most?
Well, obviously I owned Sleep a Little Bit Longer. My ex-husband and I picked him out as a yearling. He exceeded everybody's expectations and the things that he won and the goals that he helped me accomplish as a professional. And it just opened up some more doors for me. I'd clawed my way to get there for so many years and never just had that horse until him. I was fortunate enough, I had cruise control. I had Vin Diesel. I have another sleepy son. I'm always sleepy who does well. I've had a couple of owls that did well, that still had great careers after they went on to different trainers or got sold. I just have been really fortunate to ride some good horses. I've also ridden some very bad ones, but fortunate enough to have some good horses and have some good customers that understand I don't want to have 25 horses in training, that I would rather do it on a smaller scale so I could focus on them and spend more time. I don't just ride in a circle. These horses go to the pasture. We have cattle. We don't get to go to the ropings quite as much because Joe is always busy working. But if I get the opportunity, they go to the roping pen. They go see something else besides just an arena, which I think is important. And I think it's important that they're exposed to more things besides just that get ready to go horse show, go in a circle, go back, and lunge and lunge and lunge. I hate lunging. So most of my, knock on wood, you can throw a saddle on, get on and go, and you don't have to spend hours lunging. Hate it. Absolutely hate that. So,
has your training program always been this way, or has that been something that you've adapted and grown with over, the years of just learning? Have you always kind of had your horses doing other things on the farm and getting out of the arena?
Actually, it evolved more when I got divorced, believe it or not. I ended up riding out of a couple of reining barns, and like the reiner running up your butt to go stop and slide, some of those things would lose their minds. And I'm like, okay, you're going to get over this. And that opened up a door to have them more broke there. Some of those guys that did the reining that I rode with, they also ropes. So there was cattle around. My boyfriend, like I said, he has cattle, he ropes. So it opened up another door for me to say, hey, these things can get more broke. And being around some really good reining trainers and watching them ride, watching what they do, it just was like, hey, well, maybe we should try this, or hey, let's go do that, or hey, run right up next to this one, circle this one up, do this, do that, run a cow at it. Like, it's going to have to get over it. So like I said, it just opened up that door, and I feel like it's super important. I know somebody laughed at me when I said, hey, well, this is not scared of cattle. And they're like, well, we won't see a cow at a horse show. I said, but they're not scared of it. They should be able to not be scared of things that, whether you see it at a horse show or not, they still should not be scared of it.
Yeah.
So like I said, I just think that's super important. And then the other thing, because I actually live in Oklahoma with Joe. I don't live in Whitesboro anymore. I did not publicly announce that. I try to keep some of my private life private, but Texas, Oklahoma is super windy, especially in the spring. I laugh when I see and not laugh in a bad way, but I laugh at some other parts of the country when they're talking about, oh my God, it's so windy today and our horses are spooking and this, that, and the other. I'm like, come to Texas, come to Oklahoma. We'll get them over that in like a day.
Right.
I was in Michigan this summer showing at Ludington after the back to Berrien, and the first day it was super overcast. It was kind of cool, super windy. And my ladies flew in to show up there to get points, and they're like, well, you think the horses will be good? I said, if they spook at the wind, they're going to stand tied outside all day, all night, and when it's super windy, and just get over it. And mine, honestly, super behaved, went in and did their jobs. They're like, man, that was fun. Look at all those other ones acting bad. I was like, no, because they're just not exposed to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another fortunate part of where we live here, that we are able to do that with our horses.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. I'm in Kansas, and so we get the same kind of wind, and you really, as much as we hate it and want to bitch about it, but if you just get used to it, then it sure as hell gets them broke if they get used to it too. So have you had other horses that have gone on to do other events? Have they, been able to do any with the all around stuff, or even the English, the hunt seat all around? Have you had any of yours that have gone on to do that type of thing, or do you keep them long enough and they just kind of stick with you for the hunt under saddle, or what's been your experience there?
There was a lady that contacted Chelsea Carlson. This was during COVID when we went to Arizona. I had a double up investment stud for Jeff Farley. Linda Crothers was nice enough to jump this horse for me at Redbud that year. That horse went on to win the high desert, like the hack, the green working hunter. I'd have to go look at the list again. Against some big time warm bloods. And this lady contacts me quite often with the stuff that this horse has accomplished in a totally different world, I guess, from what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about how great minded he is. He is not a stud anymore. They did geld him, but how he stands there in the cross ties to be shod, to be saddled, no issues with him. I've had a few other ones go on. Ryan Painters had a couple that went on to jump for me. I sold another one to a customer of his earlier this year. It's jumping. They love it. Those particular horses just weren't going to make great upper end under saddle horses. And they were honestly happier with their heads up a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I said, let's go that route with them, because they needed a different job, something else where they would excel rather than having to get pounded on something they didn't like. So we're fortunate there that they found their owners and they found, I guess, their new event, and it worked out. Most of the ones that I do have a machine made that I think would make a good all-around horse at some point. Lucky to Sleep, they've done the all-around with him. He was good at going over the poles when he went to Ryan and Mandy's. There's been a few of those that they could do it, because I do like to make sure that they will come back and jog enough that if somebody wanted to try the horsemanship, that they could, or be ready for the egg, that wouldn't be a problem. Do I love personally doing all those events? Nope. I would rather get them broke, and then y'all can go and do all that stuff and get your riders ready. Especially at the NSPA world where those guys are running all over the place, back and forth all day and all night. No, I'd rather just stick with my Hunsey horses.
Yeah. I think even if you just do the one event, whether you just do the pleasure or just do the Hunsey at a show like the NSPA World, you can be busy from start to finish all day, every day as it is without trying to do any of the all around events. So I feel for you trainers during that show. And I'm sure Congress is largely similar to that too. But I want to touch a little bit on breeding or buying a fraternity prospect for the hunter under saddle. So when it comes to breeding, what do we need to focus on? How can we improve our horses, in your opinion, going forward to make them a little better? Like, where are the weaknesses as the breeds, or as we're looking at improving genetics? What do you see we should be looking for, choosing when it comes to picking mares and stallions?
For me personally, I like a horse to have body. They need to have some depth to the stifle, length on the stifle to the hock. I cannot stand to see one that is short there. They're not going to hold the ground. They're going to be harder to train. They need to be super strong over their backs. Obviously, you need to have their shoulder. You can't have your wither on top of your shoulder because then you're going to be bad up front. The other thing is a mind. I have a small group I have a small group of 5 brood mares for some customers, and all of them have their good points. Some of them have some points that I don't necessarily love, but they have thrown really good babies. I know the trend right now is a overgrown Western horse is winning a lot of the under saddle. I know some of the guys don't like it. Some of the guys love it. I think we could have a good mix of both if you choose. Say like the machine-made gelding that I have this year. He's an overgrown Western horse, but he can trot. He can come back and jog a little bit, and he canters through. The sorrel horse that Beth's showing this year, that horse can trot. Mm-hmm. She canters through and reaches, and it has a pretty top line. Do I appreciate a big horse that can do that? Absolutely. If I was standing in the middle, a big horse that could do all of those things would win out over one that maybe was a little smaller and a little overgrown. I do think with those trends, when you talked about having one that could go do the all around, if we look at the last, say, 10 years, everybody went from showing just a Western class or just a Hunsey class to, hey, I want to do the Western riding. Hey, I want to do the trail. I want to be able to do the horsemanship. We have to remember that these aren't quarter horses. They're supposed to be versatile. So if you breed for, yes, I choose to show one event, but if you're breeding for just one event, you limit yourself on your resale value. So if you can have a horse that is handy enough and talented enough to do all of the events, then in my opinion, you're better off. I do feel as the futurities and watching the trend there, which is funny, our English classes have been way bigger as of late than our Western classes. And some of those horses have gone on to do defenses. Some go on to do some other all-around classes here or there. So if those horses are versatile, if we breed them enough to be versatile, then they have opportunities to have a longer career. I think that is super important.
Yeah. So when it comes to finding a good fraternity prospect, what are you looking for in let's say a long yearling or like a 2-year-old? If you could build the ideal horse at that point, what does it look like to you?
Again, they need to have some body and they need to have slow legs. They need to be able to carry themselves. If I go to look at one, I don't like to see them lift their head straight in the air and take off, sloping off. They need to be able to lift from the wither and not carry themselves around with their head straight up in the air and push from behind. I'll always look and see how, if it's a baby, yearling, whatever, I want to see how wild it is in a pack of horses. I know I'm weird too. I do check out swirls on their foreheads. I've had some that's had 2. I check out the ones on their necks. I know that's crazy, but I do believe in that stuff. If it's one that's super sporty and kind of crazy, I don't want it. They need like we talk about hocks, you got to have some length from like your unique short cannon bones. Good feet. That's another thing. Got to have good feet. If you've got to put 5 different kind of shoes on this thing to make it go around, I don't want it either. I don't want to have to put my farrier through that kind of stuff. Like, let's get these things shod. Let's get them going. If some of them, like the Diesel Cruise Control, I've had a few that go around, they didn't wear shoes. They didn't need shoes.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a testament to that, the breeding on that end, where they are good enough footed and they're good enough legged that they didn't have to wear shoes, and I could haul them across the country and no problems. That's important. The other thing is talking about breeding and having good babies. I know veterinary medicine has taken a huge turn, and we go to the vet a lot. We have got to breed the body and the base back on some of these horses, where you're not having to patchwork some of these horses together to get them to go around. And I'm not the only one that says that. And even the vets will laugh. They're like, we've bred some of the hardiness off of some of these horses.
Yes. And then particularly with the hunt seaters, it's like, not only have we bred feet and good body out of them, but now we're making them 17 hands. So you're just putting large bodies on tiny, bad feet and bad legs. And it's like you said, you're constantly at the vet trailer trying to patch things up to get them just to go around.
And trying to make them to go as slow as they want them to go, as big as they are. That's hard. Mm-hmm. It's no different than a ballerina. Morgan had to stand on her toes. Like, it takes a while. It takes, like I tell my customers too, especially with the young ones, your stifles are a huge joint. They take a lot of concussion, especially while those babies are growing. You might have to do the stifles, you might have to do the hocks. Am I opposed to doing vet work? No. Do we need to do some vet work to get them from point A to point B? Yes. As they get older and they learn that muscle memory, I don't feel like you go to the vet quite as often. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe your experience is different. But I feel like once they know their jobs, I think it's a little bit easier on their bodies. And they're done growing. Hope by then they're done growing. Mm-hmm. But if you start with a good base, you start with something that's got body and has good conformation, hopefully you can avoid that at all costs.
In your opinion, do you see certain lines of horses right now that, typically have good feet versus bad feet? I guess, is there, without naming names by any means, it's like there are certain like stallion lines or whatever that you just know they're probably going to be prone to certain issues, or you really are just horse by horse by horse?
I just go horse by horse. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I'm pretty lucky that everything in the barn is pretty good footed, and we don't have to do anything crazy. I might have one that wears a wedge here or there, and I don't typically put back shoes on. Kind of lucky there too. I try not to. I have we have a couple that then they might grow 2 different front feet. You just know that going in, and you know that you might have to shoe them just a touch different, but nothing crazy. I do not like it when it gets crazy. If I walk up and I'm at the show pen and I see this horse that's jacked up this way and jacked up that way, and it's got this on, that on, I'm like, oh God. I feel sorry for that owner, and I feel sorry for the horse.
Yeah. It seems like you're never really winning those battles with those types of feet and issues anyway. So Liz, did you have any questions for her before we kind of dive into some of the industry hot topics there?
Yeah. So we kind of touched on it a little bit that, well, I don't know. I've been within the industry like for 17 years or so, obviously not at like a professional training capacity, but just some of the trends I've seen is like, we used to have a lot of the all-arounders that would do, every event when you would go to a show. And then we started getting super specialized, especially with the Western Pleasure and the Hunter Under Saddle. But it seems like you said we're kind of going back to perhaps breeding some horses that are capable of going to the all-around. Do you feel like that happens usually like when the economy is getting a little rocky or the shows are getting too expensive, so you want more bang for your buck. Is that kind of what you foresee happening going forward, is we'll get more of the all-arounders back?
I do. I feel like for as much money as these customers spend to go up and down the road, especially you got a bunch of those go-getter amateurs, there's a handful of the selects that are the same way. And then of course you got your youth kids. I think when you spend that much money, you want to get your bang. You want to get your bang for your buck and try your hand at another event, or have the ability, if the horse can do it, to say, if it does the hunter under saddle, go on and maybe try the Western riding with it. I know it'll be hard sometimes if you had an under saddle horse to go do like the trail. It is possible, but to go do trail, maybe, like I said, Western riding, horsemanship, do the egg. If they can go do the fences, I do feel like that's going to happen more. I feel like those customers have more reward, probably being able to and seeing their horses shown in multiple events. So like the 3-year-old that Beth shows this year, that horse does the Western riding. And so it's able to do both. And I think that those customers are happy. That makes them happy. If you're spending, say, $5,000 in one weekend and you only get one time to go around, it's like, oh, okay. Okay, cool, that's fun. But like I said earlier, do I personally want to do all that? Nope, do not. And I know there's a handful of us girls and maybe a few guys that don't necessarily want to do a bunch of all around. Another one that does a ton of the all around like that is Tyler Haney. Mm-hmm. Tons. He and Sandy do a very good job of, they do the under saddle, they go to the fences, and even though it wasn't a hunt seat horse, he was out there riding a ranch rider and getting it prepped at Kentucky this year. Mm-hmm. My kid has a ranch rider, and I try to keep her in the reiners. So I've actually done that a little bit this year. That was fun. And it was something that she and I could do. And did I maybe look like an idiot a couple times? Yeah, probably, but it was still fun, and it was something totally different. So, but yes, I do agree that is where our industry is headed. Did y'all happen to look at the World Show numbers? They did a revamp of the schedule, and it came out yesterday. Did y'all happen to see that?
I heard the rumors about it, but no, I have not had a chance to actually look at it. So what's your take on that?
I don't think we have a single prelim. I think everything goes straight into the finals.
Okay.
Wow.
That's sad. For our hunt seaters, mm-hmm. That's sad. And I know we have also in the past, there's been a couple times where we've shown the prelims just to kick 1 or 2 horses out. And all of us are like, Jesus, we'll donate extra money if you need to go buy another ribbon for another finalist or whatever. Why are we having to prep our horses to go around twice when, yeah, okay, we'll use it as practice, but we still can't practice too hard because you got to still make it back. So I had to go through and I had to double check twice when I looked at the schedule and rewrote it on the calendar. I'm like, God, I hope I'm not missing anything. And I noticed that some of the other classes that weren't hunting classes were also small as well. So AQHA needs to pay attention to that trend. If we are having huge numbers at NSBA, at the World Show, and then you come to that and come to our actual World Show, that's a problem.
So
in my opinion.
That can open a whole can of worms, I think, on what the reasonings behind that. But do you think it is a factor of cost and qualification for the AQHA World Show? Is it because at the NSBA World Show, trainers can also bring youth, they can bring color horses, they can bring, there's a lot of different options for everybody. There's different age classes for horses and the limited riders. And, is it because it's not as inclusive at AQHA? And, there's something to be said that it is a world show, the AQHA World Show. So they don't necessarily want levels and classes for everybody. So there's that argument to it too. But why do you think there is such a disparity between the classes going on at NSBA versus AQHA?
I feel like the horses that are supposed to win at NSBA win. I feel like the ones that maybe necessarily aren't always supposed to win at the World Show, the Quarter World, they still win anyways. And yes, I said it. I'll take flack for that all day long. I know cost at the end of the year, that's you've run hard all year long. That's another big expense. And to be honest with you, Oklahoma City, that facility is super dirty. I know they're supposed to build a new Coliseum. I think that has a factor into it. And you got to worry about if you're going to get your tax broken into, like your tax all broken into, and crazy stuff like that happens in Oklahoma City. That's another factor. And it's the end of the year. People are tired. That's another thing. You are tired.
And right after Congress, too.
Right after. I know before I had like not even 5 days to get home, wash all of sheets and blankets and clothes, reload it, and head right back up to Oklahoma City. In the past, now they've spread it out a little bit more. It's also sad too. It was awesome at night where they had the finals. I could go watch my friends that do the cow horse, the reining. They don't do that. They keep it separated out now more. I honestly, because people complained about having to ride with each other. That's sad. We are riding quarter horses. We should all get along. We are at our world show. We should be able to enjoy watching our friends do other events and not have to in riding with them. I do feel like that part is sad as well. I don't think that Youth World was quite as big this year. I know they had different divisions. From what I heard, I did not feel like it was as big as it was in the past. So I don't know if people are just tired of AQHA. They figure out they get more bang for their buck at the NSBA. I don't know. That's a question for my group.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, since you brought up the group, we'll dive into that real quick. And I know your group is, you hold it very close to you, and, you know, the people that are in there, I don't want to say you pick and choose them very carefully, but it's not just for anybody and everybody, because you do want people that are there for the right reasons and discuss the industry in a positive manner as far as how can we move it forward instead of just sit and complain and do nothing about it. So I do appreciate that about you. And all the discussions I've seen have been very, very well done. And people provide actual, like good, credible thoughts, not because everybody has to agree on it, but just that it makes logical sense and, provides different perspectives. So that's cool to see. But we'll just kind of touch on a few of the topics that I think have come up in the group from time to time, and kind of where the industry, as far as the hunter and saddle horse, is going. So one of the first ones, I think, is just the discrepancy in prize money between the pleasure fraternities versus the hunter and saddle fraternities. And not that the pleasure doesn't deserve that money, but it does seem like the entries are kind of growing on the hunter and saddle side, whereas they're dwindling a little bit more on the pleasure side. So, what else do we need to do to get show managers and promoters to want to equalize the prize money for the pleasure horses versus the hunt seaters nowadays? How far behind are we still?
The only one that has tried super hard to equalize the money and actually paid the most for a hunter saddle class over a Western class was Premier Sires and Claire Bukowski. I've tried to support her deal from the very get-go. We've gone to Vegas to show. I have gone to, I don't know, every place that she has an opportunity to show at, which she landed in Kentucky, absolutely beautiful facility to go show at. And it was a very well-run show where we weren't out there all day, all night trying to get ready. That is another big thing. Loved it. I know, like Trish Amber, for example, she's in the $250,000 club. She did it $100 at a time, where a lot of those pleasure guys had the opportunity to ride for more money and were able to get into that club very quickly. And I know so the NSBA started in the 80s. It actually, my mother helped start NSBA. So I know the hunt seat was always kind of not necessarily frowned upon, but wasn't always a favorite event rather than watching a pleasure horse go around. So the money were those customers that the customers and the stallion owners push that money that we ride for. I do feel like our hunt seat stallion owners and our customers are adding more money for us to be able to ride for a bigger purse. I know OQHA with the master's class were able to ride. That was the biggest purse for a Hunsky rider that I had ever heard of. Granted, that is no longer in existence, and I understand everything runs its course. That's fine. But I do feel if we're showing up, and this has been my argument, if we're showing up and we've got 25 entered in a green 100 saddle class, and you've got 15 in a pleasure class, why can't we get paid as much? Why are we not getting paid as much? In the last few years, our numbers have been bigger. I do, because I feel like there's still an even playing field. I know you've got your top guys in the pleasure. Sometimes there is bias. That's just life. Whereas you might have an opportunity. Your customer might be like, all right, let's throw down the money because we might have a chance to win this because we're not competing against the upper end Western guys. I hate to say it that way too, but it's true. So I hope, and I know that our talk in our group, I know I have included some show managers, I have included upper ends from NSBA. They read what we talk about, and they've actually come up and grabbed me on the side and asked questions and wanted more feedback. And they have told us that they were going to add more money. Now, NSBA this year, this was the first year that the BCF classes offered more money than they had from the first year that they had split off from the Congress or in Tulsa. The first year that BCF started, we barely filled the main barn there in Tulsa. It wasn't even half full. Now that whole facility is full. And I understand with the Reichert's dissolving, it kind of opened up the door for that to expand even more. And that's awesome. I feel like that is great. I do feel like there is more money there to push the payouts just a little bit more. The one payout this year that I was super disappointed in, and as well as a few others, it was the sudden impulse maturity. When you pay an entry fee and they're keeping 70% of your money and only 30% is going into the pot, when NSBA recommends 50%, that's a problem.
Wow.
When I was third in novice horse class and I won $200, that's a problem.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a problem. And people didn't read the fine print. So these are the things that we do talk about in our group. Yes, I keep it closed off and not as a bias, but because we are trying to talk about it positively and not trying to bash. I don't want to hear the bashing of the horse is too slow. It's not trotting this. It's not doing that. I don't want to hear that in our group. I want to hear about what can we do to improve what we have and build on it. And I do feel like the participants in that group have, and there has been a little bit of controversy here or there in opinions, and that's fine. That's what makes the world go around. But they are listening. And they had told me that they are listening, and they are trying to help our part of the industry. So if I do anything good in my life, I hope that I help out my other fellow Hudson trainers. Hey, like to be a voice for them too, because some people are afraid to speak up. They really are.
I think facilitating discussion is always the best way to go. And you've certainly done that. But I feel strongly that I'm like, it says a lot about our times, that our times are behind the times currently, where I do think maybe back in the day, historically, obviously pleasure was way bigger than the 100 under saddle. Pleasure tends to be more male dominated at the trainer level, and 100 under saddle tends to be more female dominated, at the professional level. And whether we want to admit that or not, probably had something to do with it, just the male versus female things in all of our culture. But all of that has really turned, and it's like the numbers don't lie now. They really don't lie. So I feel that those purses, show managers, it's like, please look at how you can even the purses out. There's so many great hunt seat horses out there. They deserve to have the recognition and the purses and stuff that the pleasure horses do. And like I said, the numbers don't lie. They don't lie in the open classes. They don't lie in the non-pro, and the amateur and youth classes. I mean, I feel like the hunter in saddle is bigger in the non-pro classes too, largely. So.
Hey, and sometimes it's harder to stay in those little saddles versus a Western saddle. Yeah, we might have two hands, but let me tell you, there's a little sketchiness going on sometimes.
Fake it till you make it, right? So on kind of along those lines, it's like the growing popularity of maiden 3-year-old classes or limited 3-year-old classes, fraternities, and the pleasure is doing this largely too, is like we're trying to move away so much from the focus of the 2-year-old stuff and putting more of the focus on either maiden 3-year-olds or limited shown 3-year-olds. What would you like to see? How could those types of things still be expanded? I know you had briefly mentioned sometime about could even NSBA consider doing something special for these 4-year-olds then that were held back and not shown until they were 3. So, they may still be kind of green as a 4-year-old. So what would you like to see happen from there?
I'm fine if we show a 2-year-old later on the year. Our culture is instant gratification. So you have to look at that as a factor. The customers are paying money and they want to see results. They want to see their horse go show. Do I feel like some horses are strong early on? They might taper off and they get strong again. Yes. Do I feel like taking the 2-year-old completely away is the answer? No. I would be an unpopular opinion, but to take away the lunge line. But again, unpopular opinion. If these horses, which the money has shifted more to 3-year-olds, maiden events, limited horse events. I think that's awesome. I know, say like Vin Diesel, he was good as a 2-year-old. He'd won some stuff. He'd won a little bit as a 3-year-old. That horse was actually a better maturity horse. Had he had the opportunity to win some of the prize money latest 3-year-old year, or even if they had had a 4-year-old event, that horse would have won a ton more money. I think the reining horse industry, they don't show 2-year-olds. They wait and show 3-year-olds. They have a red shirt deal for a horse that didn't show as a 3-year-old. Maybe the purse isn't quite as big for that, but it still gives a horse that maybe wasn't physically or mentally ready the opportunity to go and show for some money. Because how many people want to show just to get a ribbon? Not very many people. When you spend the money, you would like to get a little money back. Yes, maybe help cover some costs here or there. I suggested on our group, maybe they could have a 4-year-old class. If the BCF wasn't able to accommodate that, maybe just have a 4-year-old world show class and then have a maturity where it was 5 and older. Mm-hmm. I know Elise's customer, is it Megan Brown? She has the paint horse. That horse is 9 or 10 years old and he's still showing. Mm-hmm. And that horse still gets around good. So yes, he's seasoned, but those other ones maybe aren't as seasoned as him. So I'm not trying to say let's make it where everybody wins a prize, but let's get it where these horses are showing and they're a little bit more finite age division. I do think that the customers would appreciate that. That gives maybe a little bit more recognition, say for a 3-year-old year, your 4-year-old year, and then your maturity on up. And it gives those horses, say you had one that was 3. It showed good early in that year. It kind of tapered off. Maybe it got injured or maybe it just was physically growing. It can jump back out its 4-year-old year and kick some butt. Like, I feel like our industry needs that. They've pushed us to not try to have 2-year-olds ready, but you can't not give us a place to show. Mm-hmm. If you're wanting us to hold them, give us the places and the avenues to show.
So you're saying you would kind of like to see the maturities be maybe like a 5 and over class, and then maybe still have like an independent 3-year-old classes and then maybe 4-year-old classes. So you could really have like 2 solid years of having fraternity years with the horse, and then they can move on to maybe the maturity level from there. Is that kind of what you're saying? Yeah, I like that idea.
And I think you do young horses too. If you take a picture, say you have a horse from, maybe you had it as a weanling or you had it as a yearling, you take a picture of that horse every year, say same time every year. And I know I've got thousands of pictures of horses on my phone, and I laughed. I looked at a picture, the yearling picture of I'm Always Sleepy. When he stepped off the trailer, he looked like a 2-year-old racehorse is what he looked like. And now, like, he's a big sucker. Like, this is a big horse, big body. Like, he is finally mature, and he's 4. From that November of that yearling year to now, he doesn't look the same horse. So, and it's no different than children. Like, I have an 8-year-old and a 13-year-old. If you saw a picture of my daughter last year to this year at the same time, you go, that's not the same kid. She lost all of her baby fat. Now she's taller than me. Same thing with horses. So, and then she might not have been as fast then. Now she's faster. Now her motor skills are better because she's more mature. Same thing with horses. Let's give them the opportunity. They've pushed us and pushed us to do this. So give us the opportunity to, I guess, bear the fruits of our labor and letting these horses get bigger and stronger.
Yeah, I really, really love this idea as having more of a futurity focus for 3 and 4-year-olds, and that would take some of it away, I do think, from the 2-year-olds, because you do have like another full year of futurities with them, rather than if you hold them till they're 3-year-olds and like that's your 1 year kind of, unless they're, going to be competitive in the maturity classes. But a lot of them aren't, those are tough, really, really tough.
This was the first year, and I had some 2-year-olds. It just didn't pan out the way that we wanted it to, whether like one had to have surgery. The other one just wasn't coming along, wasn't physically strong enough. I had another one that had just some weird stuff going on. It's the first year that I've not had a 2-year-old, and I can't remember how long. Because for me, as a younger trainer, trying to claw my way to the top, that's where you could bust through. And this is in the last several years, you could bust through with a younger horse because there was no preconceived notions about that horse when it stepped into the pen. So I understand too, if people still want to show 2-year-olds, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that at all. I just maybe don't until an SBA or like the Congress did I don't know it's the good, better, best 2-year-old maiden. I understand that. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But if we're going to wait on some of those other, let's wait and let's give them another opportunity to show.
Yeah, I don't think we have to get rid of the 2-year-old classes, but it's just if you have more avenues to show the older horse, then it automatically just takes some of the focus away from the 2s, that. So yes. We did kind of earlier touch briefly on the more westerny versus, typey hunt or under saddle horses that can win. And I think it happens more in the non-pro classes, probably than it even does in the open classes for obvious reasons of, the horses that pack non-pros around really, really well. But with that being said, I just want to touch and kind of get your opinion on top lines are such a big deal right now in our world. In the show pen, huge emphasis on great top lines, good expressions. Everybody wants their nose just poked right out in front of it. But with that, as we know, it has come some controversy over either training methods or medications in the necks, whatever we want to call it, call a spade a spade. So how do you think that issue can be improved if we really want to start trying to move away from the perfect top line, the perfect necks, the perfect everything? But what do you have? I guess, do you have any comments there on if we don't want to be seen necks being medicated or blocked or whatever, then what do we do on the judging side to try and counteract that?
Well, first it comes from the industry leaders, whether it's upper into AQHA, the upper into SBA. They're the ones that push. You got to have we want them to see their ears forward. Okay. But we wanted to see them not pumping their necks up and down. We want to see this. We want to see that. So I'm not calling it laziness by any means. I feel like whoever is doing it, they are rewarded for it. A judge might know, a judge might not know. That's a fine line. And we've had that discussion as well, as if you could tell if one's done or you can't tell if one's done. I know nobody's perfect. If all your necks look exactly the same, that's just kind of a telltale sign to me. And not every horse, like I said, no horse is the same. So if you are that good, props to you. Like, I don't know what you do. Maybe I need to come ride with you because I know I'm really good at getting them to hide if I need to, and I will pull on one. But I think it above and beyond all of that. I understand winning is winning, and everybody wants to win. I think it's sad that if you feel like you need to do that so you can be in the spotlight all the time, you need to reevaluate yourself. Again, I didn't start riding horses just to show. I started riding horses because I like them. Are there some horses that I don't particularly like? Yes, because, they're like, again, like children. Some little children are good. Some little children are bad. Some adults are good. Some adults are bad. But I think it's sad. I think that if you have to go that far to do that, to be the winner, then you really need to look deep within yourself and ask if that is really the person that you want to be. And that's outside of what they're wanting us to have these horses look like. I don't think it should be the judges. I don't even know how you would test for it. That's another thing. I couldn't even imagine how you could test for it. Again, I don't know how to do it. I've never done it.
I have read or heard that, that's the issue is how the associations could even test for it. And I don't think it's fair to expect a judge to determine when they just see a horse in the pen, if they think that's not their job at that point. But I think it was Katie Jo Zeidema that maybe she's the one that said, if we would just get back to allowing horses to either be like vertical, pack their noses a little bit more. But that's in her opinion, I think, and I don't want to put words into her mouth, but it did seem like she thought because we're wanting the horses' noses just right in front of, like poked out just the right amount. And if they pack them vertical, then they're kind of getting penalized. And it's like, she seemed to express that that's where she thought a lot of this neck thing was starting to come from, was because.
And I don't disagree with her. I agree on that. And I have seen what she has posted as well. I don't disagree. I think I've reiterated what she has said in our group. I've had a few horses that would just hang right out there and lay on the bridle and be good and perfect in their necks.
It's pretty when they do. It's sure. I mean, it looks great.
It's awesome. And they were God-given. It wasn't because they stood checked back or tied around for hours on end. Those horses were God-given, and it's not because they were medicated either. That's what I said. If you have to go, if a trainer has to go to lengths to do that, and if you're an owner and you know this is going on, you should have a problem with that. You really should. I know this is totally unrelated, but like the guy yesterday that Jake Runyon, him and his partner got caught putting weights in fish's bellies to win the walleye tournament of wherever the heck that was. That's no different. That is no different. To me, that's no different. I know it's unrelated, but it's the same thing.
Right.
They're doing it to cheat to win, and you're cheating to win. Stop.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you're right. You're cheating to win. So is there anything, as we're kind of beginning to wrap up here, but is there anything you would like to see improved upon with the judging of the hunter under saddle right now?
Stop looking at faces, judge the horse.
That might not be exclusive to the hunter pen, but maybe it's worse.
I think it happens more in the hunting pen because we go a little bit faster. So they're looking for faces. I know after sitting back and watching a couple classes at NSBA that were packed full. I mean, I don't know if I would have wanted to have been a judge standing in the middle. Those were some tough classes. I still think they need to reward a horse that can trot, and one that not necessarily looks easy, but looks like you are having fun riding it, that it's not a chore to get it around the pen. I like to see one with big, slow legs. I know I had a couple people we were talking about the backup, and a couple of judges at NSBA, they might not have done well under that particular judge because their backup wasn't great. I know those things, if you have one pulling its head straight up in the air and fighting to back up, that's ugly. At least it should give its face and back up. Whether it's heads up a little bit or not, that's fine. I know after I talked to a couple of judges that had judged, say, NSBA, they actually called me after we had posted some stuff in the group, and they agreed with what was being said on our group. And they reiterated how hard it is to judge the Huntsy class.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see why it's so hard to judge if you know what you like. I don't understand why it's so that hard. Yes, they're faster. Yes, they're going around. If that horse kind of looks the same going around every time, not lazy judging or easy judging, but pick what you like. And if it packs its nose a little bit, choose it. If it's got great legs and it packs its nose up just a touch, that's fine. I would probably be a terrible judge, because even if it made a mistake and the horse's legs were good, I would probably still use it well. Maybe not first, but still use it well.
Right.
I know this is another thing we're talking about judging, and they were asking us to stay on the rail at NSBA. You were there, correct?
I wasn't actually there this year, but I did watch a lot of the classes on the.
That was, yes, we need to stay closer to the rail so they can see us. But when we have 25 people in there and you are trying to show on the rail and you're not all exactly the same speed, it was disastrous a few times.
Mm-hmm.
I understand, don't be right on top of the judge so they can actually see the horse move, but it was a lot. It was a whole lot. I know it put me in a weird spot a couple of times where I had to make split decisions of, do I stay here? Do I come off and am I going to get penalized if I come off?
That's a good. Do you feel like they did penalize people if you were on the inside too much, like unfairly maybe penalize people?
There was one class that I watched and the horse won and they never were anywhere close to the rail. I had a problem with that. You're telling them to show on the rail and that person was never anywhere close to the rail. I don't want to name names, but I was like, no, you're asking those people to do something and she clearly did not do it, but she's still the winner. Come on. That's the problem that I have with the judging. When you ask us to do one thing and we do it, but then you reward somebody else that's doing a totally different thing. So why? That's where I think there needs to be some other discussion within the judges groups about let's be consistent. If you don't like to see this, then don't reward it.
Right. That's
just my personal opinion. And maybe one day I'll get my judge's card and I can be in the back room and get chastised for something like that. But this is my opinion. If we're getting horses ready for you to show to you, well, we're doing what you asked.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, the Congress was up last year and we had to walk in for the finals. Everybody was like, we had to walk in for the finals so they could get numbers down. I didn't necessarily disagree with it. I thought it was awesome. It was a total change up from everything else that we had to do. And those horses were so used to trying through the gate. They're like, oh, we're going to walk in. I kind of wish they had done that in SBA this year. As big as the classes were, I think that would have been awesome.
To actually not trot in the entry gate, just walk in.
Walk them in. Let them do something totally different. Walk them in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would throw your seasoned horses off a little bit, which could be nice. So, yeah.
For sure.
All righty. Well, that's kind of everything I had. Liz, do you have any questions as we wrap up?
I don't think I have any questions. I think it was a super interesting discussion because not too many people touch on the Hunter Under Saddle stuff. So I showed Hunter Under Saddle for the first time, the last 2-ish years, but COVID took over one of those years. So it's been an interesting change for me because I used to be a pleasure girl and now I have a big hunt cedar and he's been interesting. So I like hearing all of this discussion. But yeah, it was really nice chatting with you. I enjoyed the conversation for sure.
Yeah, it's tough to go from a pleasure horse to a hunting horse. I know we've had that discussion in our group too before about, say, like Hillary Roberts or somebody only showed the pleasure to go ride on a hunt cedar, and it is different. Do we want the same things and the same concepts? Yes. but it is different, and trying to stay in your little postage stamp sometimes. It's and I try to ride a lot of mine like a Western horse, where you can use your feet on them and you can pull on them, and they're just generally just broke. And I was fortunate enough to show some upper end, not like super successful like Katie Joe or anybody like that, but I've had some good pleasure horses go around where it taught you some stuff that really helped me when I said, I'm not going to do the pleasure, just stick with the Huntsiers. Mm-hmm. So, it's fun. And then trying to contain a big horse versus trying to contain a Western horse, sometimes that's rough.
Yes. That's been the biggest struggle for me. I went from like a 15-1 hand sorrel mare to the 17-2 big bay gelding. And he just has so much, like, it's like going to a freight train. You know what I mean? It's just trying to keep him all together, and traffic and with a huge horse is always fun to learn. So yeah, it's been an experience for sure.
And sometimes riding the big ones, the little pleasure guys will get out of your way faster. It's funny.
That is true.
Well, Farley, do you want to provide any contact information, or if you're set and you're like, nope, don't want any new customers or people to contact me, but I suppose, you're selling horses too. So how can people find you? How can they get a hold of you if need be?
They can call me. That's probably the best way. My number is 903-821-9884. And I am on Facebook, but I don't have like a Farley McLendon show horses page. I didn't do all that. I just kept it. It's too much to keep up with.
Yeah. Just look you up under your name. So that's not hard to go. Awesome. Well, thank you for your time today. We really appreciate the chat. And I am now kind of Hunter Under Saddle is my love where I'm at right now. I did the pleasure as a younger lady, but for sure now I'm good with just the hunt seat clothes and one saddle. So
I never wanted to ride English horses when I was a kid, and I fought my mom. I was like 6 or 7. I only wanted to ride Western horses because I liked the outfits and I thought it was cool. And she was like, no, you're going to learn how to ride English horses. And I was like, what? So here you go. Here's a little pair of tall rubber boots, and here's a helmet. Peace be with you and see you later. And I was like, what? So the lady around the corner, she did lessons, and I went once a week for lessons, and I learned how to jump. Actually, if I could get back into that a little bit, I would, but I'm not anything like a Tyler or Ryan. I just think it would be fun. Chuck did let me jump a couple years ago when I had Sensational Asset. He let me do the hack in Arizona. I had so much fun. But yeah, so that's kind of how that happened and I'm still friends with that lady. Her daughter's actually does English, like the hunters and stuff in Georgia. And we keep in touch with each other. So I kind of, thanks, Mom. And her name was Robin. Thanks, Robin. I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for both of them. So opened up a bunch of doors and places I didn't think I was going to get to go. And I've made lifelong friends, and I have friends in other countries, and I've been out of the country because of the horses. I just never imagined any of that when I was younger. So
funny how life works out sometimes.
And the places horses can take you, and the people you can meet just through the horses.
Sure. And I wouldn't have met like my boyfriend Joe. I wouldn't be there if we hadn't met through horses years ago. And it all just kind of works out. It works out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
The good and the bad.
Yeah, for sure. Amen to that. All righty. Well, thank you again for your time today. I really enjoyed the discussion, and I appreciate the energy and time you put into it, just furthering the Hunter Under Saddle horse. And it's somebody needs to do it. And I know you've kind of taken that on lately. And so we appreciate you and your time, and thank you for your time today.
Yep. Thank y'all.
All righty. Take care.
Thanks.
All right, that'll be your class. Bring them in and line them up.